Hello guys, many of the Russian military vloggers and experts and even the ideologists of the invasion are very dissatisfied with the Russian war in Ukraine. After the failed blitzkrieg, they hoped something can change, but now simply count failures both on the front lines and deep inside the Russian rear. Days ago, Lukashenko, the buddy of Vladimir Putin, discussed that one of the main problems for Russia and Belarus in 2025 is how to survive. A tremendous change taking into account that just in 2022 they described how quickly they would invade Ukraine and continue to other countries that were once a part of the USSR. How do I know all of that? Unfortunately, I do watch Russian military vloggers, I read Telegram channels, and I know Russian. Many of you ask me this question. I speak Ukrainian. I was born in a family that always spoke Ukrainian, but being born in the times of the Soviet Union and then continuing your education in the 90s, you literally had no choice but knew some Russian. So it's not a problem for me to watch these videos, to understand these videos, and later to discuss them with you on this channel. So do subscribe if you want to know the truth and understand the background of various political decisions in Ukraine, Russia, and in general this part of the world. You know that Putin often described Russia as a very strong country and army as the second strongest army in the world. And if he did not try his full-scale invasion of Ukraine, maybe many would continue seeing Russia like that. But now even Donald Trump started speaking about the Federation as a paper tiger. And trust me, in this case, he is very correct. All because Russia lives on, the heritage of the Soviet Union, starting from the tanks and missiles they are using, and finishing with the ideology and propaganda messages, because they did not create anything super new. They are using the messages that were popular even in times of the Cold War. And with each month, with each explosion on the Russian oil refineries or pipelines, more and more Russians inside the country, more and more so-called businessmen, oligarchs, understand that Putin is destroying not Ukraine, but Russia. And finally, they started speaking about that in YouTube videos, in articles. You know what is interesting? That the majority of them do not oppose war in Ukraine. The majority of them don't care about the tragedies they brought to Ukraine. They don't care about the destroyed hospitals or schools. They are very dissatisfied with the state of the Russian Federation caused by this war. So first of all, stop looking for these good Russians. Unfortunately, they do not exist as a social category inside the Russian Federation. Of course, there are some individuals, but the majority of them, if they oppose this war, it's just because it finally started bringing them more and more problems. Beginning with this huge fuel queues, which I discussed in the previous video, comparing them to the Soviet queues and sharing some of my early Soviet memories, and finishing with constantly rising prices and the danger to be conscripted, because Putin announced a new autumn draft, and actually it's the largest draft in the last dozen years, which demonstrates he does not adequately analyze the situation inside the Russian economy, inside the Russian business. And what is interesting, many Russians agreed on this authoritarian regime inside their country for the guarantees of security and stability, and that no one can change this routine for them. But during 2025 and even 2024, they started observing tremendous changes in their life, beginning with the invasion of Kursk region and the demonstration that the Kremlin does not control the borders of the Russian Federation. It's actually interesting how they often use this metaphorical description of the Russian borders, that they don't exist, or that the Russian borders appear where the boots of the Russian soldier stand. But it can actually have this contrary effect. It's not always about the expansion of the Russian influence. Sometimes it is also about the shrinking of the Russian Federation, or maybe even its potential collapse. By the way, the video about that on this channel is among the most viewed. So perhaps more and more people start to understand that the dissolution of the Russian Federation is not a geopolitical threat, not a problem, but an inevitable situation which was triggered by Putin's economic mismanagement. So all these people who oppose war just because it started creating lots of problems for them, beginning with these uncontrolled borders and finishing with air raid alerts in many Russian regions, that is their new so-called normal, something that they decided to probe on us, and now they reap their own harvest. If it's the correct phrase to use, let me know in the comments below, and remember to subscribe and share these videos to spread the truth, because unfortunately many people, global experts, still discuss Russia and Ukraine, never visiting these countries, not speaking the languages. And that's why I believe that our mission is to spread the truth and, if it's possible to say so, translate into your languages, into your systems of belief and understanding. And that's exactly what we do in our community here. So now Russian headlines describe the situation in this classical propaganda style, but if at the beginning of the full-scale invasion the headlines were super optimistic, describing how quickly the Kyiv regime would collapse, how quickly Ukraine would surrender, and what they will get, now they are talking about the need to sacrifice something, the need to, eat less, work more for the sake of the defense of Russia. I am sorry, but before Putin started this war, they did not need to defend Russia. No one planned to attack it. It's total BS when Putin describes his aggression against European countries as the way to defend Russia from NATO. Right now, we witness the country when he intentionally sends drones or MiGs to NATO countries. NATO pretends it did not notice. So it's pretty obvious that even in the context of Russian provocations, Russian escalations, NATO does not answer. And it's funny to see how Lukashenko and Putin keep talking about this war with NATO, not with Ukraine. Again, I'm sorry, but you will not find NATO soldiers on the ground in Ukraine. But you can clearly see lots of, oh my God, demilitarized, let's use a kind word, demilitarized North Korean soldiers on the front lines. These are real boots on the ground of a country that also participates in this war to some extent, already making it a world war, because China, North Korea, Iran are all fighting on the side of Russia, and not to defeat Ukraine, but to defeat what they name as a Western civilization. I still believe that our creativity, our freedom, our respect to human life is what makes us stronger and will lead to the defeat of all authoritarian regimes that plan something evil against us freedom-loving people. So these headlines inside Russia are now very grim, very sad. They are not about punishment of evil Ukrainians, but they are about how to survive. They share on Telegram channels maps of oil refineries destroyed and gasoline stations closed. And it takes hours and sometimes days to receive 10, 20 liters of gasoline. So you have to stand a really long queue, a Soviet-style queue, to get some gasoline in a country that was the gas station of the world. Don't you think even very badly educated people understand that it's not the only failure. I mean, the blitzkrieg, many more are now happening inside the Russian Federation, and many more to come, because some processes, they take time, they have that trajectory, but that's inevitable. Same as the collapse of the Russian Federation. So do subscribe and stop being afraid of that. Once again, that's a natural process launched by Vladimir Putin himself in February 2022. By the way, let me know in the comments below, how do you think, when was this decisive moment that actually triggered the failure of Russia in this war and in general? I think it was the beginning of the full-scale invasion, because unfortunately, with the annexation of Crimea, it was pretty okay for Putin to maneuver, to pretend nothing happened, and many politicians in the democratic countries decided not to escalate, which is always a wrong choice with the bully like Russia. And he actually succeeded in that operation to a great extent, but only his madness led to the continuation of the full-scale war, and I believe to the decline of the offer from Donald Trump, an American president, not having, this right from the Ukrainian people. I'm sure offered Putin something really great, like the legitimization of the annexation of Crimea. That is totally impossible, not just from the Ukrainian perspective, but from the international law perspective. Trump wanted to create Putin really good conditions, and he declined that because he is mad. And now, people like Girkin, and Girkin is now imprisoned in Russia, but he is an FSB officer, and he was also the one to start war in Ukraine in 2014. He was responsible for military invasion of Luhansk, Donetsk regions. He was very active in Crimea. He was even active in Chechnya. So he is like that professional Russian invader. He is definitely anti-Ukraine. He's definitely anti-Western, but from his prison, he keeps writing letters describing this disgrace of the Russian army and saying that it's time to stop until we destroy all of the Russian Federation. So he understands that, even being an evil person, because it's obvious. It's funny to see how the Kremlin propagandists describe it as a great business solution, that they will send oil to China and then they will get gasoline from China. That's insane, because we destroyed 40% of their oil refineries. They have nowhere to refine the oil. They have no gasoline. Unprecedented thing for the first time in the history both of the Russian Federation and the USSR. And they will send these raw materials for like nothing to China. China will get more money and sell them their own Russian petrol that they simply cannot produce inside Russia, because it's super explosive on their oil refineries. So they don't even hope they can improve their air defense. They can protect the rest of oil refineries. That's amazing. That's amazing how they pretend everything is okay, even when their headlines speak about the country. And why did their headlines started speaking about that? Because it's impossible to hide the truth. It's impossible to hide the queues. It's impossible to hide cancelled flights, closed airports in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, blackouts in Belgorod. Recently, we targeted their thermal power plant and they experienced a blackout. So, can you compare the state of the Russian Federation in 2022 with the state in 2025? And Ukraine? Okay, they tried to get Ukrainian territories, losing hundreds of thousands of people for 1% of our land. That is bad, but it's not a story of victory. It's not a story of success. And once again, even Donald Trump speaks about that. Even J.D. Vance speaks about that. And these are not people who love Ukraine. At least I have this feeling. I hope to be. I'm happy if I'm wrong. But it's very obvious. It's on the surface. And that is why a lot of military vloggers who observe how donkeys are introduced into the Russian army to solve logistics problems, that they actually now have units on horses, that it's impossible to get gasoline on the temporarily occupied territories and almost in 50 Russian regions out of 83, that dozens of airports all over the Russian Federation are closed every day, including Moscow and St. Petersburg, that they had to cancel Navy parade in St. Petersburg, first of all, because we destroyed lots of their warships, upgraded them, to submarines, and they had to relocate the Black Sea Fleet, and they were also afraid that Ukrainian drones can destroy them even during a parade in St. Petersburg, once again exposing that Russia cannot defend itself. They didn't have a plan like that. They didn't think it would be like that. And one more proof they don't have a plan B. Their plan A was Blitzkrieg. After that, the process of the collapse and dissolution began. And Putin will not stop this war until everything collapses. So our task is to keep, pushing, to keep demilitarizing Russia and thus bringing more peace and security to this world. And I do have a feeling that it's not just the people of Ukraine who need your support, it's also the world that needs the support and bravery of Ukraine. And I'm proud to tell you that after almost 4 years of the full-scale war, longer than the Second World War for the USSR, Ukraine is in pain. Ukraine is suffering, but we are stronger than we were in 2022. And Russia is weaker than it were in 2022, which brings us to the logical conclusion. Russia must be defeated, and Russia can easily be defeated. Its size right now plays against it. They wanted to relocate drone production, oil refineries, but first of all, not everything can be relocated. And second, we reach them even 2,000 kilometers away from the Ukrainian border. And after spiderweb operation, we can reach them anywhere. So hopefully soon we will discuss Putin in The Hague. And let me know what are the other topics you'd like to hear on this channel. And remember to answer the question, when do you think did the process of the collapse of Putin's regime and the Russian Federation begin? Follow me on other social media and check our merch shop. The link's in the description of this video, same as I'm always happy to read your advice and to know where are you from. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel, but most importantly, thank you for standing with Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!